On the 11th April, Ukraine warned that Wagner forces won't be exhausted if there are no changes in the war tactic around Bakhmut. Russia's Wagner claims in control most of Bakhmut, backed Ukrainian defenders into a corner. How Ukraine had responded to this? The DPR announced a large number of the surrounded Ukraine soldiers in Avdiivka. Defense Minister Alexei Reznikov said that Ukraine has something to surprise Russian warships with. Leaked U.S. docs say Ukraine agents pursues attack inside Belarus and Russia. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Russia standing around the world has been in free fall. Good morning. You are watching the latest updates on the war between Russia and Ukraine. Here are the main highlights for today's program. Ukinform's news agency on the April 11 quote Deputy Minister of Defense Hanna Maliar, who spoke on the air of the national telephone that, as a result of Russia's scorched earth tactics, part of Bakhmut has turned into kind of Syria Aleppo, which was also destroyed by massive bombing. The enemy is amassing not only their regular troops there, the Wagner private army, which has already been largely decimated by the armed force of Ukraine, is deployed there too. The enemy does not abandon its goal, which is to capture Bakhmut, she said. In addition, according to the official, had the Ukrainian defenders not defended Bakhmut, the invaders would have advanced deeper into the territory of Ukraine.
If there are no changes in Wagner Group's war tactics around Bakhmut in Donetsk region, their forces will be exhausted within 2 months. Such an opinion was expressed by the spokesman for the Eastern Group of Ukraine's armed forces, Serhiy Cherevati, who spoke on the air of the national telethon, an UK informed correspondent reports. This is my subjective outlook. Again, that's if they don't re-establish their manpower supply sources, Cherevati said. According to the spokesperson, firefights are underway in and around Bakhmut, where the situation remains very difficult, since capturing the town is one of the priority goals for the Russian leadership at the moment. However, our command clearly sees their plans. We know how to respond to them. Our intelligence and aerial surveillance are working too, the official assured the public.
The head of Russia's Wagner mercenary group on the 11th April said his forces control more than 80% of the devastated eastern Ukrainian city of Bakhmut after some of war's heaviest and bloodiest fighting. Wagner head Yevgeny Prigozhin said his forces, who have played a major role in Russian advance in the east, were pressing on with their encirclement of Bakhmut. The Russian installed head of Donetsk region, one of 4 areas declared annexed by Moscow last September, said Russian forces has backed Ukrainian defenders into a corner. At the western areas where the units are dug in, they have no choice other than coming forward and giving themselves up. Russian news agencies quoted Denis Pushilin as telling state television.
Wagner founder and financier Yevgeny Prigozhin claimed on Tuesday that Russian forces now control much of the embattled eastern Ukrainian city of Bakhmut. However, immediately Ukrainian officials have denied Prigozhin's claim. This statement by Prigozhin is not true, Serhiy Cherevati, spokesperson for the eastern grouping of Ukrainian armed forces, told CNN on Tuesday. I've just been in touch with the commander of one of the brigades that are defending the city. I can confidently state that the Ukrainian defense forces control a much larger percentage of the territory of Bakhmut. Prigozhin needs to show at least some victory in the city, which they have been trying to capture for 9 months in a row. So he makes such statements, Cherevati added.
A large number of servicemen of the Armed Force Ukraine AFU surrendered near Avdiivka. This was announced on the April 11 by Igor Komaskovsky, advisor to the acting head of the Donetsk People's Republic, DPR Denis Pushilin. On the air of the first channel, he said that Russian formations are systematically moving forward in the Avdiivka direction. According to Pushilin, the fighters are increasing fire control over the enemy's supply routes. Earlier on the same day, the pro-Ukrainian governor of Donetsk, Pavlo Klimenko, said that Russia has turned Avdiivka into a complete ruin, but a total about 1,800 people are still in the city. According to the Russian newspaper Izvestia, at the beginning of April, the Russian army organized extremely active defensive tactics in Avdiivka.
As of April 3rd this year, Russian mass media reported the transfer of the TOS-1A thermobaric multiple launch rocket systems to Russian Airborne Forces (VDV) in Ukraine. The British Ministry of Defense reported this on Twitter with reference to intelligence data. Russia calls the highly destructive systems so-sepok. The TOS-1A is typically operated by Russia's specialist chemical, biological, and radiological protection troops in Ukraine and has not previously been associated with the VDV, as the report. The transfer of TOS-1A likely indicates a future role for the VDV in offensive operations in Ukraine, intelligence notes. This is likely part of the effort to reconstitute the VDV after it suffered heavy casualties in the first 9 months of the war. As UK Inform reported earlier in the previous update, British intelligence reported that the Russian army continued to waste significant resources to obtain minimal gains on the battlefield.
In a joint briefing with Denis Kotopot, Chil Lun Pusan at the Ukraine Media Center, Odessa, Ukraine's Defense Minister Alexei Reniskov said that Russia is unaware of all the circumstances surrounding the sinking of the Moscow missile cruiser, which could lead to a new surprise for Russian ships in the Black Sea. He said, I would very much like to share the details that I'm aware of, but we have an agreement with Alexei Neizpopo, the commander of the Ukrainian Navy, and thanks to his efforts and his team, this happened. We cannot disclose the details at this time. Some aspects are still unknown to our enemy, which means that we can still pose another surprise for them at sea. We are just waiting for the right moment to repeat the story. Russia's flagship Moscow was sunk in the Black Sea on the April 13 last year following the mysterious Ukrainian attack attempts.
Để đối phó với dàn vũ khí của phương Tây ở Ukraine, Nga đã sử dụng nhiều chiến thuật.
Russia is assembling and training troop units of what's been dubbed tank hunters to combat modern armor provided to Ukraine from its Western allies, according to an official who spoke to Russian state media. Evgeny Arfulin, who heads a military training center in Russia, told the Kremlin-owned Zvezda TV channel on Sunday that Russian Deputy Defense Minister Yunusbek Yekirov had ordered the creation of these so-called tank hunters or tank killers. Ukraine recently received Challenger 2 tanks from the United Kingdom and German Leopard 2 tanks, as well as Cougar armored trucks and Striker fighter vehicles from the United States. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's forces are also expected to be delivered American Abrams tanks later this year, after the U.S. announced in March that it would send older M1A1 models, since a new version of the tanks would take a year or more to arrive to the war-torn country. RT reported that Arfulin said the tank hunters were currently being trained with an emphasis on learning how to attack Western armor. He also said the Russian military has been studying the Western tanks that have recently arrived to Ukraine, as well as the anticipated M1 Abrams that is expected to be delivered by fall.
Ông Mercado nói, các thợ săn xe tăng của Nga có thể sẽ sử dụng hệ thống chống tăng 9M133 Coret. Hệ thống này tương đương với Javelin của Mỹ, nhưng có tầm bắn hiệu quả hơn gấp đôi, cho phép đạt được khoảng cách xa hơn. Ông cũng suy đoán rằng các đơn vị chống tăng của Nga có thể sẽ sử dụng đạn uranium nghèo.
The Russia-appointed leader of Crimea is on guard for a highly anticipated Ukrainian counter-offensive, which is thought to be set for spring. Sergei Aksyonov said Russian forces in Crimea had built modern, in-depth defenses and had more than enough troops to repel a possible Ukrainian assault. We cannot underestimate the enemy, but we can definitely say that we are ready for an attack, that there will be no catastrophe, he said. Mr. Aksyonov first mentioned the new fortification works in November without giving details. In February, at a security meeting chaired by Russia President Vladimir Putin, he said that the works was set to finish by April. According to Sky News, this could suggest that there are growing concerns in Russia about a possible Ukrainian attack there. Military experts think Kiev would take advantage of improving weather to seize the battlefield initiative with new batches of Western weapons, including scores of tanks and fresh troops trained in the West.
Against the background of manpads and ATGMs of the West falling into Ukraine, it is time to raise the issue of the safety of civil aviation in the world and Europe, the Foreign Ministry told RIA Novosti on April 11th. The ministry stressed that the European Union and its member countries had collectively transferred Kyiv weapons and military equipment worth more than 12 billion euros. In addition, they supply heavy weapons, aircraft, tanks, and also agreed to transfer MAT by the end of the year, another million artillery shells, the department added. In addition, the EU countries do not prevent the recruitment of mercenaries, the foreign ministry said. Under the systematic strikes of Ukrainian artillery, residential areas of cities, civil infrastructure, shelling is being carried out. Zaporizhia NPP with all the ensuing threats of nuclear catastrophe on the continent, the foreign ministry said. Commenting on the words of the Prime Minister Hungary Viktor Orban, said the EU countries are close to discussing the previously avoided topic of sending troops of a certain peacekeeping type to Ukraine. The Russian department pointed out that any arguments of the European Union about its peacekeeping in the current conditions are very hypocritical, since the EU does not make any efforts towards a political settlement.
Ukrainian agents have pursued drone attacks inside Belarus and Russia, contrary to US and Western wishes. And leaders in Kiev have considered further attacks outside Ukraine. According to a batch of leaked US documents that appear to expose national security secrets. Two documents appear to show Ukraine launching operations inside other countries, though some allied nations have said any such actions might cause them to reconsider their ongoing support for Kiev. John Bolton, who served as a national security advisor during the Trump administration, said the disclosures show how damaging the leaked document could be. Releasing this information could be intended to undercut Western support for Ukraine by showing potential operations cross-border and by revealing purported weaknesses in Ukraine's air defense capabilities, he said. One document marked top secret, note two separate attacks allegedly orchestrated by Kiev that appear to have minimally damaged two Russian targets outside of Ukraine, a military airfield outside Minsk, Belarus, and a gas compressor station in Moscow suburbs. In the first instance, the officials with Ukraine's security service, Kiev's main intelligence agency, assessed that the agents in Belarus has disobeyed order and attacked a Russian surveillance aircraft at a Belarusian airfield on the 26th of February, according to the document. The document alleged the agents used a quadcopter drone and caused minor damage to the plane, a Rus A-50U. Lukashenko had previously alleged without evidence that the February 26th attack was coordinated by Ukraine and the U.S. intelligence operations. A week later, according to the state news agency Belta, Lukashenko said that a terrorist trained by Washington and Kiev had orchestrated the attack. and that more than 20 accomplices who are in Belarus have been detained, the rest are hiding.
Andriy Yermak, the head of the Ukrainian President's office, has appeared to reiterate calls for newer fighter jets, as he says Ukraine needs modern aviation and anti-missile defense. Mr. Yermak, one of Volodymyr Zelensky's advisors, said a modernization of Kyiv's air defense was needed to prevent against Russian attacks using guided aerial bombs. He said the weapons were being used to kill Ukrainian civilians. Ukraine has long pleaded for Western fighter jets to bolster its forces as it plans a counteroffensive, but the calls have been met with hesitancy so far.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, during a conversation with Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba, strongly rejected any attempts to cut down on the Ukrainian country's ability to win on the battlefield. The Ukrainian foreign policy chief said this on Twitter, Ukrinform reports. During our call today, Secretary Blinken reaffirmed the ironclad U.S. support and vehemently rejected any attempts to cut down on Ukraine's capacity to win on the battlefield. The U.S. remains Ukraine's trustworthy partner focused on advancing our victory and securing a just peace, Kuleba said.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken also said Russia's failure to grant consular access to wrongfully detained Wall Street Journal reporter Ivan Gershkovich puts it once again in violation of international commitments it's made. I think Russia not following through on meeting its obligations to consular access, never mind the practice of detaining people arbitrarily for political purposes. It's going to do even more damage to Russia's standing around the world, a standing that has been in free fall, particularly since its invasion of Ukraine last year, Blinken said at a news conference at the U.S. State Department. I think it sends a very strong message to people around the world to beware of even setting foot there, lest they be arbitrarily detained, he said.
CIA Director Bill Burns said Tuesday he expects more nuclear saber rattling from Russia as its war in Ukraine continues, but his agency does not see evidence of preparations for any potential use of nuclear weapons. Burns says the CIA does not see any significant change in nuclear deployments by Russian leadership. He also said the leak of classified military documents represents an urgent problem for the U.S. that is as intense as anything in the current moment. Burns, stressing the importance of balancing both short-term and long-term issues, specifically pointed the leak as an immediate problem to the U.S. intelligence agencies are grappling with.
The United Arab Emirates rejected reports suggesting that Russian intelligence was touting deepened ties with the Emirati government and planned to work against the United States and the United Kingdom, as reported by the Associated Press, citing an apparent intelligence document from the U.S. CNN has not seen the document cited by AP, and both have been unable to confirm its authenticity. UAE officials have not seen any of the referenced materials, and any purported claims referenced in the Associated Press regarding the FSB inquiries are categorically false, an official from the UAE told CNN in a statement on Tuesday. We refute any allegation regarding an agreement to deepen cooperation between the UAE and other countries' security services against another country, the official said. The UAE has deep and distinguished relations with all countries and is committed to adherence to international law and respect for the sovereignty of states, the official said. The German government reported transferring a new military aid package to Ukraine, which includes 8 reconnaissance drones, another 23,520 rounds of 40mm ammunition, and 8 mobile antenna systems. Germany has also delivered 8 more Zetos trucks for extreme off-road conditions, bringing the total amount to 60, according to the report. Canadian Defense Minister Anita Anand announced a new military aid package for Ukraine on April 11, in cooperation with firearms manufacturer Colt Canada. According to Anand, Canada is donating 21,000 assault rifles, 38 machine guns, and over 2.4 million rounds of ammunition. These arms will support Ukraine's fight to defend itself and to protect our shared values, Anand wrote. Canada previously pledged 8,000 rounds of 155mm ammunition, 1,800 rounds of 105mm tank training ammunition, and 12 air defense missiles to Ukraine after the 10 Ramstein summit on March 15.
Acting Defense Minister of Denmark, Joel Lund Pudsel, said on the 11th of April that the West could make a decision on the transfer of fighter jets to Ukraine before the summer. Slovakia and Poland have already delivered 4 MiG-29 jets each to Ukraine. Polish President Andrzej Duda said on April the 5th that his country had prepared to transfer 4 more and was preparing 6 more that can be transferred quite soon, bringing the total number pledged to Kiev to 14. Duda also suggested that in the future his country might provide its entire fleet of MiG-29 fighters to Ukraine once the Polish Air Force acquires new aircraft to offset the loss. While acknowledging the MiG-29 transfer as a major help, Ukrainian Air Force spokesperson Yuri Inas said that the Soviet-era fighters are unlikely to be a game-changer at the front. That has wrapped up our update today. Thanks for watching and please tune in for our next program.